Welcome to Spotlight Santa Monica. I'm Sandy Jacobson. Today we're talking about the city's infrastructure, finding affordable housing in Santa Monica, and one of the city's most treasured places, Virginia Avenue Park. It takes a lot of work to keep our city running smoothly and safely. Joining me now is City Engineer Lee Swain. Lee, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So what does a city engineer do?
Well, the city engineer in Santa Monica has a lot of interesting work, but my primary responsibility is to ensure that all types of public infrastructure are built to city standards and that they are constructed in a safe manner for the long-term benefit of our residents. An example is the Expo Light Rail project. That's basically a project that's done by another entity, but that project is a major public works infrastructure in the city of Santa Monica, and so they need to abide by our city standards. They submit plans for review. Our office reviews those plans to make sure that they meet our standards, and then they construct it, and they need to construct it in conformance with those approved plans. So really what we do on small projects or large is make sure that the infrastructure is of a certain standard and quality in Santa Monica, and it'll be to the benefit of our community long term.
Aside from the light rail, what else counts as city infrastructure?
Infrastructure is all types. If you travel around the city, you'll see it virtually everywhere. For instance, in the transportation area, you've got streets, sidewalks, bridges, alleys. You have traffic signals and signs and pavement markings. We just redid about 350 new crosswalks around about 100 different intersections, for instance. It also involves bikes or bike infrastructure. For instance, bike racks. We installed about 500 of them in the last couple of years. We've got bike lanes going in throughout the community. It's major public facilities like City Hall, fire department
So
facilities.
buildings as well count
Yeah.
as infrastructure?
A lot of buildings in Santa Monica. We're fortunate to have the Annenberg Beach House, which is unique to our city. The pier is unique, but all types of public facilities like libraries. But there's also a lot of infrastructure that you don't see regularly, and that involves our primary utilities like water, sewer, and storm drains. So storm drains, all those utilities are normally underground. They're very important for a city, but you don't normally see them because when it rains, the water tends to get collected by these storm drains, and it's, hopefully percolated
right.
into the groundwater, or it's put to a beneficial use. Sewers, for instance, when you flush your toilet or take a shower, that water needs to go someplace and be treated. So it's treated through a collection, or it's collected in a system of sewers, and it's treated at a treatment plant down in Hyperion.
How many people do you have working for you? This is an enormous undertaking.
Well, there's about 30 people in our division, but there's a lot of city departments that are involved in all city projects, but it takes a lot of work from a number of different departments
I don't
to
think
plan.
I never realized how much is involved here. What are some of the most memorable projects you've worked on?
I've had the fortune over the last few years in Santa Monica to work on some great public infrastructure projects. One that comes to mind is the water treatment facility and the Sharnock Wellfield Restoration Project. In the mid-1990s, Santa Monica lost the use of our wells in that Sharnock ground basin because of pollution. And so this treatment plant that's on the corner of Bundy and Wilshire, it's actually outside our city, but we own that property. It was significantly enhanced to a state-of-the-art water treatment facility that basically cleaned that water that we were now able to pump, and we're now able to produce most of the water that we need to supply this city, as opposed to having to purchase it from another entity that typically would bring it from outside the region.
So that Bundy Wilshire development, that's strictly for Santa Monica?
It's a treatment plant that the city has owned for many years, and most people don't realize it's there. Most people don't realize we have water rights in the Charnock area, which is also outside the city, but that infrastructure, as well as a significant 25 million gallon water reservoir, which is underneath the LA Riviera Country Club. That's all Santa Monica owned facilities that benefit us every day in providing clean water, and most residents are very surprised to even hear about it.
If residences or businesses want to work on their property, do they have to go through your department, and where do you start with something like that?
Yeah, they would simply, if they're starting a project and they've never done it before, they come into City Hall, they take a right, go down the hall to the public counter. We have public works staff at that counter. We also have building and safety and planning staff. So they would just simply meet with the receptionist, let the receptionist know what they would like to have done, and they'll direct them to the person that will be the most helpful, and that often involves our department. We also have the ability through a new software to be able to accept plans for a plan check online.
Oh, cool.
So once you get started in the process, if you have to go through a plan review process, you no longer have to drive down to City Hall. You can submit those plans online, which is very convenient for the person that's developing
And
those
a
plans.
lot less frustrating than waiting in a long line.
Exactly.
So is that what you call K-Bug?
Well, KBUG is a loose acronym for Know Before You Go. It's a public outreach tool that the city uses, and it's published online on our city website, and it's also published weekly in the paper. But basically that particular tool allows people to know what's coming up in the next week or two, so that if they need to modify their route to school or work, they can do that and be less frustrated if there's a lane closure, for instance.
That it's less about building than it is about moving around the city.
Right, it's more about giving people a heads up on things that are coming up in the near term. We also have other public outreach tools. One is Be Excited, Be Prepared, which if you go to the city's website at smgov.net and you look at the icon that says Be Excited, Be Prepared in the lower right-hand corner of that homepage, you can click on that and you can get a lot of information about the projects that I'm talking about.
What are the current projects that you have in the works besides the light rail?
Right now we've got some really interesting projects. I mentioned light rail. Light rail is just a game changer for the city of Santa Monica. Many years ago, 50 years or so ago, there was a light rail line that served the city, but we haven't seen it for a long time. With that light rail line, we will now be well connected with downtown LA and some of the other communities in between, like Culver City. And they're actually building a $1.5 billion extension, the second phase from downtown, from Culver City to Santa Monica. That was as a result of a parcel tax, or I'm sorry, a half-cent sales tax that was approved by the voters as part of Measure R in 2008. So Santa Monica will get 3 wonderful new transit stations, or Expo light rail stations. And so virtually anybody in the community can find their way either walking, biking, or even driving to one of our great stations, and they can do all kinds of fun things in other communities, and others outside of our community can work and take light rail or bike, for instance.
And stay off the streets.
Yeah. Speaking of interesting projects, the Expo bike trail is also coming to Santa Monica. It's along the same alignment as the Expo light rail line, and that will be another great amenity for people to get to and from work.
Thank you so much, Lee. This has been very interesting. For more on our city's infrastructure, visit smgov.net/publicworks and click on Civil Engineering. Up next, affordable housing in Santa Monica? It exists. Details next.
Experience Highway's Performance Space and Gallery.
I knew my journey would lead me to a place
where I'd find a highway that I could travel to the beat of my own drum. Right out the storm, 95 Joey died, but Deadly was born.
And there would be no limits to the vibrancy of my performance.
Join us each week at Highway's Performance Space and Gallery and live without limits. Log on to highwaysperformance.org.
Good morning, sunshine. If he were, he'd tell you, right? You're too healthy to be.
He didn't look sick.
What if you weren't safe every time? What if he's sleeping with his ex? What if it broke? If you are HIV positive, what happens next?
You don't have to live with Mr. Doubt. Common Ground offers free testing and care for HIV and STDs, including hepatitis. Just stop by or call us.
It's time you know.
The city has a whole department devoted to keeping Santa Monica an affordable place to live. Joining me now is Andy Agel, the Director of Housing and Economic Development. Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here, Sandy.
So what are the primary responsibilities of the Housing and Economic Development Department?
So Housing and Economic Development is responsible for investing in the production and preservation of affordable housing. We administer rental housing assistance for about 1,400 Santa Monica families of low incomes. We also operate the world-famous farmers markets. We are responsible for economic sustainability, so programs such as Buy Local Santa Monica, as well as we're the liaison to the various business improvement districts. And we are also responsible for all of the real estate in the city. So we buy property, we sell property, and we're responsible for leasing city assets, which range everywhere from the property that the Viceroy Hotel sits on to all the restaurants on the pier.
Wow. And how many people do you have working in your department?
We've got about 35 people.
Yeah, it sounds like you're covering a lot of different bases. What would you say is the biggest current challenge facing your department right now?
You know, I think our biggest challenge is that we've lost our primary funding source to invest in affordable housing. Up until 2012, we had a redevelopment agency in Santa Monica, and that was an agency that allowed us to keep some of our locally generated property taxes in Santa Monica to use for things like affordable housing. That ended in 2012. The state ended all redevelopment agencies, and so we've lost a major funding source. I'd say the primary funding source for affordable housing.
How much are we talking about?
We were generating in the few years leading up to 2012, we were generating between $15 and $20 million per year for affordable housing.
Put that into some context for us. How big a chunk is that out of the city budget?
Well, so the entire city budget is over $500 million, but that covers everything from police to the
and
big
fire,
blue bus.
right, yeah.
But in terms of affordable housing, $15 to $20 million has allowed us to invest every year in producing. Over the last 10, 15 years, we produced over 1,500 affordable apartments. And you think those apartments are affordable for generations and generations. So it's really quite an impact that we can
That's
make.
how Santa Monica mainly used those funds?
We invested, of the redevelopment funds, we invested them in affordable housing and infrastructure improvements. And we were required by law to set a certain amount aside for affordable housing. And in Santa Monica, we always contributed far more than the minimum required.
Why do you think Santa Monica has always placed such a high priority on affordable housing?
You know, I think there are a few reasons. One of them is this is a very compassionate community. And I think most people in Santa Monica really care about those that are less fortunate. I think people in Santa Monica also like the fact that this is an economically diverse community, that your children can go to school with kids who are of various socioeconomic backgrounds. You can have neighbors who come from all walks of life. So I think that's been very important. And then I think people also like that there's a housing safety net, that if you were having hard times, you lost your job, something like that, had a major life change, that there is housing available at a variety of income levels that would be affordable.
How do the citizens or the residents show you that support?
Well, I think there have been a few ways. One of the most notable was in 1979 when the voters passed the Rent Control Charter Amendment saying we want to make sure that housing in Santa Monica stays affordable. After that, in 1990, the voters passed another initiative that said, would like all of the housing that's built in Santa Monica, would like for at least 30% of that housing to be affordable to low and moderate income families.
How do you assess the need for affordable housing in Santa Monica?
Well, I think there are a few ways you can assess what that need is. One is just to look at what does it cost to rent an apartment in Santa Monica, and what could a family of modest means afford? So I'll give you an example. For a 2-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica, if you just went out into the market and rent an apartment, in 2013, that average apartment would cost you $2,500. So let's compare that to a family that makes, say, half of what the average income in Los Angeles County is. So
which is?
Average, it's for a family of 4, it's about $64,000. So think of a family that's making half of that. So maybe in making $30,000.
So like a 2 minimum wage salaries.
Yeah, exactly right. That family could afford to pay $875 for a 2-bedroom apartment. So look at that gap from under $900 to $2,500. That's pretty significant. And lest you think that there's no one in Santa Monica who has those types of incomes, it's actually not the case. 1 in 5 Santa Monica households made less than $25,000 in 2012.
And managed to live in Santa Monica.
Managed to live in Santa Monica because we've had great programs. We've had a very aggressive affordable housing program as well. Rent control has helped a lot of families stay in their apartments and have affordable rents.
Well, given this need that you've identified, how do you make up for that loss of redevelopment funding?
Well, it's not easy. When you talk about $15 to $20 million, while the total city budget is $500 million, every program is serving a critical need. I'll give you an example. Just trying to carve that out of the city budget would require pretty devastating cuts. The entire budget for the Santa Monica Library is $12 million a year. So if we wanted to return to where we were, that's the type of drastic cuts we'd need to make. So we're looking at, are there new funding sources that we could develop that could go towards affordable housing, and that could be funding sources that we control locally.
But how about federal or state funding?
Well, you've probably seen the gridlock in Washington. We don't think there's going to be a lot of help for affordable housing. The state's been trying to come up with ideas. They have yet to come up with any idea. And even if they do, I think in a place like Santa Monica, we're going to need to have matching funds. We're going to be able to say, we're putting something into this to match the state funds.
Your department includes housing and economic development. And you were talking about the farmers market and affordable housing. What's the link between those two?
You know, I think the link is we're addressing some of the most basic needs that a person might have. Do you have a place to live? Do you have an income that comes from a job? I mean, that's at the basic level. If you don't have income, you don't have a place to live, it's difficult to really take advantage of everything else Santa Monica has to offer. And we're dealing with those very basic things. And I'll give you an example of how this might play out. Our farmers market takes what's called WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, which is essentially a food subsidy. Yeah, exactly. It's a food subsidy, and you can go to the farmers market, use your WIC payment, and you can take advantage of the fresh, sustainable produce that we've got on offer.
So, in just like the 30 seconds we have left, what are some of the upcoming economic department offers, efforts that you're going to make?
Well, we're working on a variety of things throughout the city. A lot of them are taking advantage of some of the real estate assets that the city has and trying to make them more productive for the community at large. So right now we're working on some movie theaters, new movie theaters in the downtown.
Oh, cool.
We're looking at creating a permanent site for the ice rink downtown on some property that the city owns. Those types of things that are really community assets, things that everyone takes advantage of, and we get to be a part of that.
Well, that's very exciting. I know my grandchildren will thank you. They love the skating rink.
Fantastic.
And it'd be great to have even more theaters. We love that.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Andy. I appreciate that. For more on the affordable housing, please visit smgov.net/HED. Up next, a splash pad, tutoring, a farmer's market, and a brand new library. Find out all about what's happening at Virginia Avenue Park. Stay tuned.
Riding a bicycle can seem like child's play.
But only if you're playing indoors.
Riding in the real street has real consequences.
Play it safe. Ride by the rules. Cars and bikes need to play together.
Discover 30 years of opera in Santa Monica. Discover the Verdi Chorus.
We are so lucky to have so many beautiful and unique parks in Santa Monica. Joining me now is Carla Fantozzi, Principal Community Services Program Supervisor from Virginia Avenue Park. That's a long title. Thank you for joining us, Carla.
Thank you.
Virginia Avenue is more than just a park, isn't it?
Yes, you know, there's so much more to Virginia Avenue Park. The park has, of course, basketball courts and a wonderful grassy area for picnics and family time, but we also have playgrounds, and we have a splash pad.
What is that?
Oh, the splash pad is this wonderful, like, fountains and water jets and even some little water pistols that the kids can play with. So it's the most popular area of our park. And kids are there from whenever it's hot outside, you'll see the little toddlers playing there.
Oh, cute.
We also have the patio room, which is available for rental on the weekends and birthday parties. And there's the Thelma Terry Center that also has a big room to rent for events. But in the afternoons there we have our community programs and different things. And now the latest addition to the park is a library. So we have this great, the Pico Neighborhood Library, and that really rounds out our park into being a campus, actually. It's much more of a campus now.
Well, talking about campus, and you talk about the community service rooms and everything, what kind of things are they used for? Do you actually present programs, or do people bring their own activities?
Well, it's a combination of both. We have a lot of different agencies that come and provide services to the community there, and such as early childhood programs in the morning, so you see a lot of Mommy and Me classes. We also have social service agencies that use the rooms and make them available to do counseling. But in the afternoons, we have so many children there for our after-school homework assistance programs and our recreation programs, and we have artists there. And you know, the Police Activities League operates the gym there, and we have a boxing ring, and we do all kinds of karate and different activities there. So it's a lot of fun.
Who helps the kids with the homework?
It's a lot of our own staff that work with the students, and we never want to turn anyone away, any of the children in the neighborhood who need help with their homework. So we're always looking for volunteers to help out. But we have a lot of staff who work with them in the afternoons. Another big part of our after-school program is our Artists in Residency program, where we've been working with artists since the park reopened in 2005, and they have been, some of them are the same artists that we had from the beginning, from that period. And they teach oil painting and digital arts and mural making.
So they're not just doing their own work there, they're actually teaching.
They're working with the kids.
Oh, that's great.
And they've become mentors and real great supporters, and they're really devoted to the children.
And are the parents still involved at this point?
Oh, yes. You know, our parents of our program participants are always at the park, and they take advantage of the different things. They really want their kids to succeed in school. So, I noticed they were always hanging around, and we put extra benches out for them, to relax while they wait for their children. And then I said, we need to do something to try and give them more opportunities.
Right.
So we worked with the Mar Vista Family Center to do a parent leadership program on this. And
describe
we did
this.
So we had 6 weeks of training, and it was all about how to develop leadership and self-advocacy. But at the end of this 6 week, and it was all in Spanish because a lot of our parents are Spanish speakers, the parents were so excited. They were organizing events like a Day of the Dead celebration at Virginia Park, and they were so inspired they even invited the police chief to come and speak with them at one of their meetings, and she came.
That's wonderful. So you really empowered them.
Yes.
So, and now you mentioned the Pico Library. How does that add to the campus?
Well, I was talking to you about the Artists in Residence. When the park reopened, we really had lots of, arts was our theme. And now with the library, it's literacy is really becoming an equivalent thing that we're really championing. And we're so excited to have the library there. Their staff is really creative. We're going to be collaborating on so many different programs They do their story times in the mornings when we have our Mommy and Me classes happening there, and they do book clubs. We'll be doing a lot of things this summer together, preparing for college readiness, and so doing SAT preps and doing college application workshops. So we're very excited to have them join us.
And you didn't even talk about the farmers market yet.
Yes, you know, Saturdays, the weekends at Virginia Avenue Park are really lively. At the farmers market, there's just so many people there on Saturday mornings. We even have a little kid zone where the kids can go and do arts and crafts with another artist in residence while we have the farmers market. But the weekends are just, you know, the park is always busy. There are people there from morning until night. You have to sort of usher off the basketball players at 11 o'clock when we have to shut down the basketball courts.
Yeah, well, kids are always throwing hoops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about your artists and the literacy program and everything. How can people get involved who are interested in volunteering?
Well, you know, we really would love to have more volunteers because, to be honest, our staff are really stretched, and to work with the children, especially the elementary age, they need to have that one-on-one and have someone to work with them. So we have some great volunteers. One of our volunteers who does math tutoring for us.
I was just going to ask you, if you're going to help with homework, you have to know new math.
Well, not for everything, but this math tutor who came to us, he's just great, and he just got to be volunteer of the year through the NCAA girls basketball team at UCLA. Awarded them that, and he got to bring all the kids that he works with to a basketball game. So that was a lot of fun. But if you're interested in being a volunteer, we welcome it. Stop by the park, give us a call, and meet with one of our supervisors. And when you become a volunteer with us, you become a part of the City of Santa Monica volunteer program.
And that involves?
That makes sure that you are totally registered, that everyone gets fingerprinted, and it's a good, safe environment.
Now, all these things that you've talked about, like the Mommy and Me classes and the working with the artists, is it free to the participants?
Yes. All of our programs are free to Santa Monica residents. And you know, when the park reopened in 2005, the goal was really to turn the park into a hub for that neighborhood, co-locating all of the services in the area. So we really were looking at how do we make all of these opportunities in walking distance and all these services to Pico residents, and for them to find it and easily in one place, in one location, and all for free.
So, though you are a park, ostensibly you are a park, in fact, you've really become, like you said, a community hub that affects that whole area for miles around, I would think.
Yes, and you know, we always hope that people will bike or walk to the park and it's for that Pico neighborhood, but everyone's welcome.
Oh, that's great. Is there a lot of bike parking?
You know, we do have a bike valet, and there's lots of...
A bike valet?
Yeah, on Saturdays for the farmers market, and so that's free. And then we also have lots of bike racks all over the park.
That's great. Well, you've certainly turned it into a very exciting and innovative place to be. Thank you, Carla.
Well, thank you.
For more information, please visit smgov.net VA Park. Thank you so much for joining us for Spotlight Santa Monica. Make sure to tune in next time to meet more of these amazing people who are making things happen in our community.